Welcome to Indica and this week's tribute to Tupac. We dedicate this whole episode in dedication to our fallen soldier, the outlaw himself, the Don Illuminati, Tupac Machiavelli Shakur. And we are the PTC. I'm one of your hosts, Theatre Mutiny, and got my friends, my posse with me. Y'all want to introduce yourself real fast?
I go by The Outcome.
I go by Moon Magic.
And Mperial Beatz.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna like chitter chatter, scatter your brain with a couple Tupac facts, Tupac, quotes, whatever. Some memories of how we were established under the influence of Tupac. Still to this day, of course, but just some things that stood out to us. And that being said, I guess I can start it off. I do have 5 things that I wrote down personally that really impacted me, as a listener. Beginning with crazy fact, when Tupac died in 96, I was only 13. It's a trip to think about how old you were when he was like, doing it. It's like we were all alive while he was alive, but a lot of us were young. I was barely a teen, but I was living in the projects at the time. So, I remember who got me into Tupac. It was not just the radio and my mom. It was like my stepfather at the time. My mom was married to this white guy, right? And he was really cool. He was so cool because he would always drive me around, give me cigarettes and give me a sip of beer and shit, whatever. But he would always bump that All Eyes on Me Tupac on cassette because it just dropped, right? So I think that's my oldest memory. Anytime I hear a song like, California Love or I Ain't Mad at Ya, the Method Man shit on that whole album, it's a 2-disc album or 2 cassettes, however you want to put it, right? But every time I hear a song from the All Eyes on Me, I think about, when I was 13, living in the projects, learning how to smoke weed for the first time and skipping class because I was getting bullied a lot. In the projects, I was the only Mexican in my class. So it was not fun, but I feel like Tupac, like a lot of other musicians, got me through that shit. But yeah, that was my first interesting, fact about Tupac and me myself personally. So keep your head up. I want to say in songs like Crazy from the Machiavelli album. I don't know if y'all remember that song, Crazy. Are y'all familiar with the Crazy song? It's called Crazy with a K.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that song right there, it's really nostalgic too. Basically because of some trauma-based moments as my childhood, But even to this day, he's talking about, time goes by, puffing on life, hoping that it gets me high. Gotta going crazy, right? It's like that right there. I could listen to it without smoking to and feel like I'm actually smoking with him. It's like, but even when you are smoking, oh, shit hits heavy. It's like, it's still like that. It's like time goes by, I'm puffing on life, hoping that it gets me high. Because there's a tolerance now. You're like, when you've been smoking for over 15 years, you have a tolerance, and sometimes a joint won't do it, right? So it's just like, I'm hoping that this gets me high. And you never know what you get out here, like especially in California, the strains are so powerful. It's like, okay, I don't even have to smoke like Tupac anymore because my little Texas lungs, 15 years of smoking too. It's just like, you don't need that much. But Tupac, you can never have enough of. I'm just going to leave that one right there. On to Tupac in movies, right? Because he was a big actor. Dope one at that. Very few have even done it like him. I respect 50 Cent and all these other new cats, but nobody's really doing it the way Tupac did. But on that note, even though I don't like his character in this particular movie, this is my favorite Tupac movie, Juice. Where he plays Bishop. He plays the guy that just fucks everything up, and kills his own friend, and he ends up dying. I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, sorry, I just spoiled it for you. But it's a classic. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. He kills it. I don't know if he I feel like he chimed into his own personal growth, because when you read it about Tupac, he was not the happiest artist. He didn't have the best of luck, you know. Cat had 9 lives, it seemed like.
Yeah, he did.
Bullet point number 3. I only wrote down 5 so that we can move on. My favorite Tupac collab. I'm only gonna say this because there are too many, but my favorite Tupac collaboration was with Bone Thugs. Also because I love Bone Thugs. But there were a lot more better collabs, to be honest. But that was the only one I can think of that's more personal for me, because Bone Thugs was another group that really got me through the projects. My favorite Tupac albums are, of course, All Eyes on Me, the one I spoke of when I was 13. That was the one. It was like, holy shit, I can understand what he's saying. It's probably because I was living in the projects at the time, but I feel like the music that was coming before that, like Brenda's Got a Baby, it was just dope. I didn't understand the guy, but it was dope, you know? It's like All Eyes on Me and Machiavelli, the very last one, the 7 Day Theory, dopest albums I've ever heard in my life. And my last point I want to make, dedicated to Tupac. Oh yeah, I already said that one. Yeah, I was 13 when he got killed in '96, and there were no memes or emojis at the time to describe the atmosphere. You know, like things were different, and I can only imagine if Tupac was still alive, like the impact that he would have not only on you know, us as current artists, but like, you know, my son as an artist in 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like he might be able to get acquainted through Tupac through me, but he will never get acquainted to Tupac like we all solely got acquainted. Yo, what's up, Amaru? How you doing, bro?
What's good? What's good? Chilling. How's everyone doing?
Chilling,
Good
bro.
to see you, brother, man.
Peace.
So yeah, what we're doing now, I just named 5 things that really inspire me, things that happen every day because of Tupac, you know, like in my mind, in my life, or even the music I've listened to. So what we're going to do, like it started with me, we're going to move on into Mperial Beatz. He's going to drop down like 5, you know, just give us 5 either facts or anything, or favorite lyrics, favorite songs, right? Whatever, you know, there's no limit to what you want to do. Let's do it, bro.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go ahead and pass the mic to my brother Mperial Beatz now.
Already. Yeah, you know what's crazy is that today, to kind of reflect on, you know, the music of Tupac, I went to Spotify and I just started listening to old classics. You know, some that you already, you know, pointed at, which was, you know, All Eyes on Me album. You know, it was like a classic album. You know, in '96, I was 13 as well. And just the delivery of the lyrics at that time of everything that was going on in his personal life, as well as, you know, the world at that time. I mean, if you were growing up during that time, and like how you said you were, you know, in the projects, you know, on tough times, you know what I'm saying? And then for me, you know, being, you know, pretty much fatherless, you know, trying to figure my way out in the world, and then listening to his lyrics and having someone to, you know, have something in common with, you know, just through the lyrics, and someone who can understand your pain, someone who can understand what you might be thinking or what you're going through or the way you're feeling. I mean, it spoke directly to you, and you really now can't really find that with artists. You can't find that connection. And I feel like Tupac really connected, you know, through his music, you know, no color lines, you know what I'm saying? Like you could, you know, Mexicans, whites, you know, Asian. I mean, he spoke to everyone. And I felt like that was like the biggest threat to people who didn't understand him, and, you know, politicians, you know, people in the media who wanted to portray him as this thug, you know, and someone who didn't belong, you know, free, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, some songs that really spoke to me was, you know, All Eyes on Me album, Life Goes On. You know, I lost a cousin around that time. And, I mean, even today listening to it, I got a little emotional, you know, because you know, even the video, if you watch the video, I mean, it has a huge impact, you know, on like him speaking, you know, moving on through life after death and all that stuff. Shorty Want to Be a Thug, you know, back then when I was trying to figure it out, man, I was over, you know, thugging, or what I thought was thugging, being a little badass. But, you know, the Machiavelli Crazy, you pointed at that as well. And definitely that at first, you know, that intro, man, it's like, man, you don't have to be smoking or anything. You can just listen to the whole song and it's like you're right there with him. And you know, that's what I mean about his music. Like, you didn't have to know him personally. You just had to sit there and listen to him. You can sit there and listen to all his albums and you can feel every lyric, every, you know, message that he's trying to tell you, and you can relate to it in some way or another, you know. I think now verbatim, I don't know if I can remember it, but the intro to the feature he had with Scarface, with Smile.
Yeah.
You know, and he says, you know, there's gonna be a lot of stuff, you know, that you're gonna see.
All the rain
you pretty much, you know, smile through all the BS, you know. I think for me, anytime I've had a bad day, or I mean, like, I feel like I'm gonna have a meltdown, like something dramatic has happened, you know, I put that song on and it's like, you know, it's powerful, you know what I'm saying? You listen to the whole song and, you know, it kind of lifts you up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? You kind of remember, like, yeah, you know, this moment's here right now, but, you know, I'm gonna smile, I'm gonna get through the BS, you know, tomorrow's the new day, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So as far as like the his acting ability, like you said, I mean, there's no one who can portray him in real life or his acting ability. Like, he was just one of a kind, and his character, Bishop in Juice, I mean, with everything else he does, you thought he was really Bishop, you know? And in a lot of ways, I think I saw in an interview or I read it somewhere where he literally became Bishop, where people were like really thinking like he like flipped the script on him. He like really became this person, you know? And that's got to be one of my favorite movies of all time, Juice, The Wrecking Crew, you know? So I think as far as him being able to speak about women, Brenda's Got a Baby, to real life situations, you know, regarding men, women, growing up in the projects, in the ghetto, and I mean, all that. I mean, he is definitely one of a kind, and I mean, we'll never get another Tupac. We'll never get another person just like him. So I think we were blessed to be able to be here during the time of his music and the time of him being alive, and
Right.
you know, it's been even now, I mean, you go on Spotify, man, you can definitely relate and, you know, talk to Tupac. Oh, one of his songs that really, really spoke to me in my life was in the Are You Still Down album. There's a song on there called Hellraiser. And he is so aggressive. Like, growing up and being the person that I was at the time, you know, very aggressive. And I mean, I'd make enemies out of anybody, you know, and I just had a lot of built up anger growing up, and just hearing that song and how he's apologetic to his mom and saying, you know, pretty much, I'm sorry for, you know, who I am and what I became, you know, this is just who I am. And that one really spoke to me a lot growing up. Even now I listen to it. But I'm not a Hellraiser anymore. You know what I'm saying? But
the Hellraiser though, I was gonna ask you a question about, Because you know he has
Yeah.
like a couple of songs with that word in it. Are you referring to that one song where he's like, "Mama raised the hell raiser"?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit's hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
Yeah. Very, very like. I mean, it's a great track.
It's raw. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the downfall of him, and I'm not trying to take up too much time. This would be the last what I got, but I think the downfall was him really speaking his mind. And during that time, in hip hop, I mean, everybody was in an enemy. You know what I'm saying? Public Enemy. Anybody in the hip hop scene speaking out on these things going on in the inner city, in the ghettos, in the projects. I mean, they were like, people wanted to shut them down. Like, stop talking about it. We don't want to acknowledge that it's really going on. You know what I'm saying? Police brutality, all these things that are still going on now.
Yeah.
And they're still trying to find ways to shut everybody up. But I think everybody's smartened up between then and now. I think with social media and people like saying, hey, I really have a voice and I can say what I want to say. With him during that time, I think that was what put a target on him and the downfall of him having so many enemies, and I guess that's what grew his paranoia and his aggression to everyone, and what made him so alive at that time was his passion, not only for his music, but for saying what he wanted to say. And he didn't care what anybody thought. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I love him to this day. And I'll always be a Tupac fan. We miss him, definitely. We could definitely use him right now.
I'm saying we're gonna Simone him. We're gonna resurrect him in our, in our endeavors, especially in our comic.
Yeah.
Oh, I said comic, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty much all I got to say. And thank you for letting me have this time. I'll go ahead and pass it on to, whoever wants to be up next.
So for me, because I think I'm the youngest on this little chat here. I'm the baby. I was born in '94, so a little baby.
Oh shit!
So I was
Okay.
barely alive when Tupac was killed. But I think I'm also. Is anyone else on this Zoom a California baby?
California baby.
Hey,
Yeah.
so I'm also
What's
California
up?
born and raised, So I think being in
Okay.
California, like California love, like that's just like, you know what I mean? Like I don't feel like you can be a person, especially within hip hop, and be in California and not know who Tupac is, not be influenced by Tupac, and not be influenced by that sound, and that California love, literally, because he repped California so hard. And he loved this state, you know what I mean? And I think it's just one of those things, like you grow up listening to it at the school dances, as you're cruising with your friends. And so I think that's kind of like within music, and just the way in which, the gangster rap culture as a whole influenced California, and California hip hop is a big part of how I was introduced to Tupac. Personally, where I feel like I was really admire him the most is probably within like just the way he carries himself. You can see it within his poetry. That's one of the things I love the most. The rose that grew from concrete. I have this painting inspired by Tupac's poetry. And it's, I don't know if you can see it on here. Maybe not. But it's like you can't really see it on here. But it's a rose, but it's a power fist instead of a rose.
Nice.
And there's like a city in the background, and then it's like a little crack in the concrete, and it's growing out of it. And I think, with Tupac, it's just that it's kind of like I feel like that poem summarizes a lot of how I feel Tupac is as a person. Is this beautiful, amazing, intelligent, witty, charming. He's very charismatic. Just somebody who knew how to carry himself well, and was lovable in every aspect. You know what I mean? And so he was like this beautiful flower, a beautiful rose that grew from concrete, that grew from, the gram. So I'm actually going to read that poem in honor of Tupac. It says, "Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law of wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else even cared." And that poem, there's so much within that poem right there alone that I feel like really, to me, amplifies who I think Tupac is as a person. And, as also being someone who was younger and, Tupac passed shortly after I was born, I got to know him a lot more through his interviews and just listening to him speak and listening to him spread his words of wisdom. And, he was so young, but he was so wise. And he's like, the poem says, "Proving nature's laws wrong, it learned to walk." And I feel like that's really Tupac as a person, even after, people were attempting to murder him before he passed, he was still like this courageous lion. And, he even talks about how he thought he was kind of immortal to a certain degree. And it says, "Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air." And every time I listen to Tupac speak, he's such a visionary. I think that's one of the things I take away the most from him is his strong ability to have a vision for the world, a vision for himself, and his strong will to make that happen in the world, and not allow other things to bring him down. And you can listen to almost, especially when you start listening to his interviews towards the end of his life, his very last interviews, it's just really eerie because almost a lot of the things that he said, it was like him predicting what was going to happen to him.
Yeah.
Him predicting some of the things that happen within the world. And so many of his words are still so relevant to what's going on now. And at the time, kind of like Mperial said, it wasn't as, it was quote unquote a new thing, for people to talk about hood life or, gangster life or what was going on. And so he really opened that door, you know what I mean? And had that courage to speak about those things. And it says, the last line of this poem says, "When no one else even cared." And how, when you watch these interviews and the interviewers are kind of combating him on what he's saying, he's like, "I'm just saying this is my life, this is what it is." And he was never afraid or back down from it. And now, after you see everything that happened even within this year, it just brings so much more depth and meaning to the words that he said during that time. So that's probably my first two things: California Love and The Rose That Grew from Concrete. Another thing is, again, because I'm a baby, y'all remember, the 2016 Coachella. That was a big thing. I was in my first year of college at the time. And my homegirl, my roommate, she was like, she said she almost cried when she saw the Tupac hologram. But
the hologram, right? Yeah.
That was such a big thing, and people were freaking out. I didn't go to Coachella that year, but
I was freaking out.
But that was a big moment of history too, because I don't know, did they ever hologram people before that?
If they did, I don't know. Not as big as Tupac, obviously, because we didn't hear about it,
Star Wars.
Right. And just seeing that, Snoop Dogg, he's also obviously a big California person that if you're in California, you obviously grew up listening to Snoop too. So to be able to see that on the video and just see that history, and Tupac is kind of literally immortalized in that type of way. So that's that was a really cool thing to see, especially for the younger generation who never got to see him perform in real life. That's the closest we really would have to being able to see it in real life. Another fact, my number 4, my fact I want to share is actually the meaning of Tupac's name. His first name's Tupac, his middle name's Amaru, which is actually Amaru. Is this the same reason? This is funny because your name's Amaru. But it actually means shining serpent. Tupac Amaru was the last ruling Incan emperor.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just even that shining serpent, you know, people are afraid of snakes, and there's a lot of symbolism if you look at the serpent and it being kind of like this very powerful creature that can almost like shapeshift, you know, and is very, you know, you don't put a snake in the corner, you know, and you can look up all the symbolism of snakes and serpents. And I feel like, you know, Tupac carried that medicine of being that shining serpent, you know, who was gonna, you know, bite some people, you know, but in all, you know, some people times we need to be bit, you know, sometimes we need someone who's gonna come straight forward with the truth, and is that serpent, you know. There's a lot of medicine within the serpent, and I feel like he carried that and was shining in the way that he did it, you know. His last name Shakur is Arabic, and it actually means thankful. And you know, I think just the shining serpent, thankful, that's really what his name means. And he really was a shining serpent, and the world is thankful for, you know, the light that he carried into this world, and the words that he shared, and the way that he has impacted and influenced not just, you know, California hip hop and culture, but really all of the world and all of hip hop. All right, my last one is probably gonna be, he was in a movie with Janet Jackson. That's my last fun fact, called Poetic Justice, in 1993. And Poetic Justice, I had it up here, let me pull it back up. But the meaning of poetic justice is, it is an outcome in which virtue is rewarded and evil is punished, often in an especially appropriate or ironic manner. And
Sounds
so
like
I think
hip hop, right?
sounds like hip hop, right? It sounds like the character of Tupac. And, you know, I think it's really interesting as you look at his life and kind of see all of the things that, you know, went down, and kind of the way the media and the music industry corporations kind of used him and his image, not to his benefit, you know what I mean, but to their benefit. But, you know, I will always be grateful and thankful for the legacy that he left behind, and the ability to be, I think Mperial said it earlier when he was just talking about how he's just so, I don't know if sure of himself is the right word, but he definitely carried himself with this is who I am, and I am not going to not shine or not be who I am to make anyone else feel comfortable. And he did speak his mind. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about Tupac. So yeah, those are my 5 things.
Dope.
Thanks for letting me share.
I didn't know that about poetic justice.
Yeah. Oh, and Dear Mama, y'all. Dear Mama is jam. That was my jam to my mama.
That song really does.
I feel like that's everyone's jam to their mama, you know?
It's just a sentimental song, you know? It's like, why do I want to cry all of a sudden, but bob my head at the same time? It's like, you know.
And you know,
Yeah.
that's the funny thing about Tupac, right? Is like, you know, he has this hard persona, right? The thug life persona, right? But then when you really get to listen to actually looking at his lyrics, the meaning of his lyrics, other parts of his songs, his poetry, like he was just such a passionate, loving, and kind of had a soft inner side, you know. And I think he carried that duality and totality of being a full person, you know, very well. And it's just very beautiful to see. So
most definitely, man. I know for a long time.
My things.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was calling Tupac my father, you know, because I don't really know my dad. You know, I was like, Tupac taught me more than my own dad has to this day, you know. So, but I'm currently, you know, meeting my dad right now, so I can't say shit like that no more. So,
hey, that's what's up, man.
Yeah.
You're on a journey of healing. That's always important, you know.
Yeah. But
that's
thank you,
up.
Tupac.
Nice, yo. If it's cool, if I can just jump in, go next, I guess. But, you know, just to kind of echo a lot of what people said, yeah, Tupac was legendary. I really think he was immortal in a lot of ways because obviously we're still talking about him. He had murals thrown up around him in the hood before he even died. You know, like how many people can say that they got a mural thrown up
Right.
of them before they passed away? Like, that's heavy, you know, to think about. And then first getting introduced to Tupac, I think it's just early on, growing up around hip hop culture. Obviously, I think the first hip hop like I ever listened to at all was Bone Thugs and Harmony, just because that's what like my older siblings were bumping, or just people in the neighborhood and whatnot. And then like Cypress Hill and West Side Connection, all that stuff. But then Tupac was definitely a part of all that. But I think I just knew I was familiar with more of his, like, you know, the famous songs that went like, you know, that the bangers like To Live and Die in LA, California Love, like Mash was talking about.
Yeah.
Even like To Live and Die in LA. I'm not from LA. We're from Orange County, but we're from Santana. But you know, SA is like the initials of our city. But we were just growing up. We would like fuck around and be like, to live and die in SA is a place to be. We would replace LA with SA. That was kind of like something.
It works, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a trip to still like kind of think about a lot of those things, because he's definitely like a really huge influence on my own like lyricism, my own journey as an MC and whatnot. And something that always really stood out to me is, his confidence, the way he carried himself, the fact that he was always so critical, so analytical about like everything that was going on around him, while at the same time, you know, having fun with it, which is, I think, is like just a characteristic of people that come from, you know, the hood in general. It's like we have like this experiential knowledge that really allows us to have this deeper analysis of the world and our surroundings. But also we're funny and we're clever, and I think it's because that's our coping mechanism, you know, because we're dealing with like a lot of trauma and whatnot, a lot of violence. But you know, something that I've always really liked about Tupac is what he did with the acronyms, and that's kind of like why my MC name is also an acronym, Analyze My Always Rotating Universe. But I think the acronym that he created for the N-word, never ignorant, getting goals accomplished, I think that's like a huge one. And then like the classic Thug Life, like the hate you give, little infants fucks everyone. I think the fact that like he came up with these acronyms to kind of like speak volumes about shit that was going on in the world and society, stuff that's still relevant today, because obviously, you know, things have changed, but we still have these overarching oppressive systems that exist that still need to be like done away with, right? So I think he kind of spoke to a lot of that. And then like as much of an influence as Tupac was, I think his mom was also someone that later on in my life, you know, I definitely like really respect, and I really look to a lot of her teachings, her wisdom later on in my life, you know, after obviously Tupac passed away and all that. But Afeni Shakur, I think she's really responsible for a lot of the things that like Tupac was capable of flourishing and becoming, because although, you know, she had her struggles, and he's obviously vocal about that and he expressed that as well, she kind of really helped to foster a lot of that in Tupac. So I think that's huge, and just like the legacy of the Black Panther Party, Tupac's family, understanding that like historical context is super important. And you know, like I know people say a lot of times like, yo, we need Tupac now in the game, because you know the mainstream is the mainstream. I agree with that. I'm definitely, you know, I would echo that sentiment. But I feel like there's hella people out there really doing that in a lot of ways right now. And I would say at this time, someone that I really feel is like, you know, not only like in the spirit of Pac, but like really the essence of like what it means to live that type of way, you know, like thug life, all that. I think Mozzie out in Sacktown, man, Mozzie's like really doing that in a lot of ways. And what's crazy too is that Mozzie's family, his own like personal, you know, experiences, his family also has a legacy with the Black Panther Party, you know, like Mozzie's grandmother was like one of the first people to start the free breakfast program out there in Sacramento, up in Northern California.
I didn't know that.
In his neighborhood, like
I'll be in there in a bit, bro.
And I think that's crazy because, it's like you think about the struggle that our ancestors went through, and then you have COINTELPRO, FBI infiltration movements, all that stuff. And then, like, it's like, oh, they killed the movement, like nothing happened. But literally their legacy carried on in like all sorts of ways, right? Like they try to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That whole idea, I think, is really relevant. And it can't be hip hop without that, because even hip hop its origins come from, flourishing when nobody else cared. Like when Moon Magic was talking about, the rose that grew from the crack in the concrete. It's like you're focusing on all this other fuck shit, but you won't recognize the fact that we're flourishing under these like really oppressive
circumstances,
like horrible circumstances. Like, why can't you even acknowledge that? And I think Pac not only made sure to mention that so people had to recognize it, but he was also like living it and like unapologetic about it in a lot of ways. Like, yeah, you want to love me because I'll take on this persona of being a gangster. I'll take on this persona of like gangster rap because that's what the industry wants. That's what they want to perpetuate. But you know what? I'm still gonna come and like really what the album that really hit me the most. I mean, I love Pac's like discography, right? Like he has some really cool shit. We party in that music, all that. But Tupacalypse Now is by far one of the best albums ever made on the like ever.
Tupacalypse Now.
Tupacalypse Now, and I'm talking about like Violent. Brenda Had a Baby. That's where Tupacalypse Now is where that track originally came from too. That's the inspiration for that, and that's really where he's like deconstructing a lot of things that are happening in the world. And like even in Violent, where he says they claim that I'm violent just because I refuse to be silent. These hypocrites is having fits, but I'm not buying it, defying it. Envious because I will rebel against any oppressor, and this is known as self-defense. Like literally, he just in a couple of bars deconstructed everything that's happening right now with the Black Lives Matter movement. Where we're talking about police literally gunning people down, and then people are talking more worried about looting than they are about like people getting murdered in the streets, right? So I think like Tupac had the gift of being able to do that, and that's what I really love about him more than anything. And then like Mash said, like Moon Magic brought up to the Tupac Amaru his name. I was gonna mention that too, because I'm Peruvian and his name comes from the Peruvian like legacy that we grew up hearing about. And like Tupac Amaru wasn't like the last Incan emperor, but he was definitely like someone that said he was, because at that time when Tupac Amaru existed, Peru had already been colonized by the Spanish for like a really long time. So they were already living as slaves. They were already living under these like they were already experiencing the colonization of their land, right? So when Tupac Amaru existed, he was kind of like Tupac. He came from the slums, the hood, all that stuff. He was like a rose that grew from the concrete. And like Tupac was coming around saying like, yo, I'm the best. Like, you can't fuck with me. I'm immortal. And then Tupac Amaru, literally this brown indigenous Peruvian rebel, was saying the same shit. He's like, no, you didn't kill the last Incan emperor. I am the last Incan emperor. What's up? And he's like, let's go. And he was like,
idol, huh?
Like, he was like, yeah, he's like, I don't give a fuck. You stole all the gold already. I got that shit. We got that. Like, I got it inside of me. My veins are flowing with gold, homie. Like, and that's who Tupac Amaru was. And I think like he led an insurrectionary movement against the Spanish Empire in Peru, and eventually he got caught. He got killed, and the way that they killed him is that they tied his arms to horses and his legs to horses, and then they sent the horses off in every single opposite direction. So they just literally ripped his body apart. And I think all of that, I think literally like it's wild because I honestly think in a lot of ways Tupac, the Tupac that we all know, popular culture knows, was Tupac Amaru's like spirit, like the essence. Again, right? And the fact that Afeni Shakur decided to name him Tupac Amaru, I think that was like really powerful as well. Because yeah, it means shining serpent, but definitely in Incan culture, Quechua culture, like the indigenous culture of that region of the world where my family is from, serpents don't really have negative connotations. You know what I mean? Like serpents are like revered because they're the ones that are closest to the land.
I heard that one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, since the snake is closest to the land, they're the ones with the deepest analysis of what's happening around the world. And that's really like a lot of the inspiration for the first letter in my name, A.M.A.R.U, analyze my always rotating universe. Because I think we have to like,
that's dope, bro.
One of the best things that I think Pac did for us, and I think like it's not only Pac, there's hella people like who are a part of like the struggle we inherit, right? All of our ancestors. I mean, there's like Leonard Peltier, there's Afeni Shakur, you got Assata Shakur, you got Tupac Shakur, you got hella people out there who are in the struggle, and Malcolm X too. I think Malcolm X is a big one too, because they lived in this constant state of perpetual reflection. Like they were never done growing. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the biggest takeaway for me, especially when it comes to like Pac's legacy, because I think it's important, as much as he's revered and as much as like people like to glorify him and all that, there is a lot of like negative things that really surround his legacy. And I think rape was one of the biggest ones that was like, you know, and like Kobe Bryant too, you know, like the rape allegations, that shit's heavy, yo. And I think that's like the ultimate crime, because it's really like that's like the ultimate like embodiment of like colonial like mindset mentality, to believe that like something, that another person's body belongs to you. It's like the same way that the mindset of believing that the land belongs to, that you can own the land, right?
Domination.
So yeah, domination. And then the fact that Tupac reflected on that, and he felt shame, and he felt guilt, and he admitted it, and he talked about how he, thinking about that, how he could have done things differently, that even though it wasn't necessarily him that did it, but he was in the room when it happened, that he could have played more of a role in stopping that. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think those are the biggest takeaways for me, especially when it comes to like Pac's legacy.
Amaru. I literally got goosebumps when you said that he's the spirit of Tupac Amaru from the Incan Empire. It literally gave me goosebumps. Like I can feel that.
Yeah. You know,
like, oh snap!
Yeah. I feel like that happens, you know, and I think it's just that's wild. The nephews are playing outside. They just dumped a bunch of water on my wife. They're playing with the water.
Oh,
Holy Spirit, what's up?
That you're getting metaphorical again. I was like, damn, this is deep, Amaru. But I had a question for you, man. I wanted to you said your acronym for your name. I didn't know your name was like an acronym. Can you repeat that again?
Oh yeah, analyze my always rotating universe.
Dope.
Yeah, and it does come from the Quechua word, obviously, A.M.A.R.U, but yeah, it's just something I kind of fucked around with for a little bit, because I think that's kind of something I always want to, you know, I kind of always want to make sure I adopt that in every single aspect of my life, like constantly reflecting on how I can be better, and not really thinking I'm reaching like a pinnacle of who I am as a person or nothing like that. So I think, you know, just constantly working towards that. I would just like to thank Moon Magic, Mperial Beatz, Theatre Mutiny, all y'all. Thank you for I love that poem too. Thank you for sharing that, you know, creating space.
Yeah, I feel like everybody needs to get his book of poetry. The one thing I really like about his book as well is that it's like photographed or like screen scan of his actual handwriting. And you could see his doodles on it and stuff. And it's just, I don't know, I feel like,
Nice.
you know, as an artist, as an MC, as a, you know, poet with my words, I think it's just really inspirational to kind of see his little doodles on there and, you know, see his little mistakes and him crossing it out or, you know, going
Yeah.
over it. And it's just, yeah, there's, you know, there's also this poem about solitude there's just so many good ones in there, but
You
yeah.
have a copy of this book?
I don't personally have
Okay.
a copy. I had a copy,
Yeah.
but I gave it away. You know, the gift that given. You got to give it away. You got to give the good poems away so that, you know, we can spread the Tupac greatness.
Yep. Know it. You know, when you brought up Tupac and his acronyms, Amaru, I didn't know that there was an acronym for outlaws.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's because they didn't say it a lot because they were not trying to like, I don't know, they were being just, you know, they were called immortal outlaws up until two of them died. Then they dropped the immortal out of it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, apparently outlaws meant operating under thug laws as warriors.
Ooh,
And
damn,
that reminded me of the Amaru
I didn't know that
stories.
one. I
You
did
know,
not know
the
that.
Inca. That reminded me of the Inca emperor story. You know,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
for real.
It's crazy how he was dismembered too. You know, like fuck.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like, you know, I might just be tripping out. You know, you could say, "Oh man, you're reaching for that," but I think the fact that he was born on the East Coast, and then he grew up in Oakland, and then he was like Philadelphia. You know, it's like pieces of him were being like taken to every part of like Turtle Island, this continent. You know, so it's like he was meant to have a lasting impact in that sort of way.
Yeah,
then,
true that.
I think it's
Keep giving me goosebumps over here.
I think it's important to acknowledge.
That's good, man. I read something last night that I was tripping out on. Y'all know that lyric by Tupac where he's like, "When I die, cremate me, smoke my ashes," right? He says that. Well, check this out. I read last night, like in '95, the Outlaws got together and smoked Tupac's ashes, right? But that same year, they realized that it wasn't his ashes, and they don't know whose ashes it was. So that's a fun fact. It's a fun Tupac fact.
And why are we smoking people's ashes?
Yeah, that's heavy. That's heavy.
So were y'all smoking? Like, we thought it was Tupac. Oh, well.
Did they mix it with some weed at least? You know what I mean? With some good herbs, because, you know, I don't know how that would taste just straight.
Yeah, I kind of want to get more details on that story, but that's
Me too.
Yeah. Like, how does that happen? Where do you get a bowl of ashes, you know, and then, oh, wait, that wasn't Tupac.
Yeah.
Who was it?
You know, I really like the part Amaru said about the growing, you know, about what Tupac, you know, represents as, and Malcolm X, a lot of these other great leaders who kind of leave us way too soon as people who are always constantly growing and never looking to be stagnant. And I think that's really beautiful because a lot of times, you know, in society, we kind of like, you know, look down or, you know, like cast judgment or shame on people who love so openly or speak so freely and are so fierce. And as they grow and change and they're constantly looking to better themselves, you know, people like to tear down their character based on like, you know, previous whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's like a beautiful thing to keep in mind about what made those leaders, you know, so phenomenal was their ability and humility to be able to admit when they were wrong and be able to, you know, admit that they, you know, had to grow in certain places and to still be such strong in character, but still be able to, you know, show that side of them. Yeah, I just think it's, you know, a really phenomenal trait of both of those leaders and just a lot of the leaders I can think of in general who kind of, you know, they expanded out of this place, you know?
Yeah, they did. Rest in power, Mr. Tupac.
You know, as we're kind of talking about it, and you were talking about some of the history of colonization, Amaru, you know, I think a lot of like mainstream society and white society in general likes to paint, you know, Tupac as like this villain. But, you know, if you actually like, it's funny because a lot of those people aren't people who listen to his actual interviews and listen to him actually speak. You know, he talks very openly about that as well, about how, you know, this is just the reality of the conditions, the reality of the situation, and that he doesn't encourage any of that. You know, he never talked about encouraging this type of lifestyle. Right. He was very open about this is the type of lifestyle. And actually, Tupac was a big advocate of trying to help people within the hood get to college, be able to, you know, he talks about that's the road he wished he would have been able to have been, you know, known about or just been able to have the opportunity to do when he was younger, and that he wanted to pass that baton on. So people also like forget the actual like community, you know, they look at him as this thug, or, you know, he was just, you know, blazing with guns all over places, but he was actually really not like that at all. And he was moving more into a lifestyle of leadership and was actually trying to be able to help the youth and other people within the community to not, you know, make some of the mistakes that he made and be able to give them opportunities that he didn't have, you know. And I think that's one of the really important things when we talk about his legacy is that, you know, there's a really like a one type of Tupac that a lot of, you know, and one type of the songs too, even like the mainstream songs, you know what I mean? It's very to portray a certain image of him, but it does not give you the full picture of the legacy or the impact of what he was doing or who he really was as a person, you know?
Yeah, true that. I didn't notice that, but you're right about, you know, the mainstream songs that we hear to this day. They glorify a lot of the stuff that Tupac, yeah, he was affiliated with, but that wasn't the whole Tupac. That's surface level Tupac, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like a lot of artists who are like caught up in the industry too, they kind of acknowledge that too, you know, especially that there's something that the industry demands of you. And like sometimes you fulfill that because you got like you got like binding agreements, right? I think Tupac kind of acknowledged that too a lot of times. But that's why he would always put out his other work as well. Like that's why I think Tupacalypse Now was way different than some of the other things you'll hear on his albums. Yeah. Because even though they weren't like some of the ones that are getting radio play, in that same album he'll make sure to incorporate something else that's going to make you think about things a little deeper too, you know?
I mean, talk about like how crazy he was work ethic wise, you know, like apparently he had so much music recorded when he died that 15 albums came out later. And then, you know, some of his establishments are sitting on music still unheard of. So I guess we can look forward to some more Tupac, you know. I mean, it's still not the same. I think it has a lot to do with production, right? Because like even with his last album where I think it was like Tupac's World or something, or Players Ball or something like that. The lyrics were dope because it was Tupac, right? But the production was just really dull and like R&B-ish too much. And it was like, they were great producers, but obviously I don't think they suited Tupac's work, like Dr. Dre, right? And DJ Quick. And you're talking about RZA even, you know, made a couple of beats for Tupac at one point. So it's just like, when you think about the Dog Pound family and all that stuff, who really gave a lot of Tupac background beats and stuff, and even vocals at that, like it's not the same. Like, so I'm hoping that when we do hear another Tupac album that, you know, at least Dr. Dre's on there somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Because that right there, that was like the pinnacle of Tupac's sound. I want to say, like, you know, yeah, because he had Thug Life forever. You know, his group was Thug Life for a long time. You know, and that's where half of the Outlaws came from. Thug Life, you know, Big Psych and them, and you know, he had the thug mentality already down. But I feel like when you mix that Thug Life mentality, you know, in the beginning it was boom bap. It sounded like KRS-One beats. You know, like when you mix that Thug Life mentality outside of boom bap, you get Dr. Dre, and then you get the face of Tupac, the guy who's standing behind me right now. You get Machiavelli, right, with Dr. Dre's sound, amplifying that Thug Life mentality. And in a sense, because of, I know, Dr. Dre's background and how he makes artists, you know, create the sounds they make, like, they glorified a lot of this shit. Like, Dr. Dre is really infamous, you know, especially with NWA. They're really infamous about glorifying it instead of, like, shedding light on it. Yeah, they shed light on it, especially with, you know, the typical mainstream music. they shed a lot of light, you know, like Fuck the Police, shedding a lot of light. But when you listen to like 90% of their albums, they're glorifying it. They're glorifying, you know, pimping bitches and all this shit, thug life. Like, not like Tupac was, but since he was so acquainted with the thug life from the get-go, it was nothing for him to do it, you know? The music was amplifying it, you know? And that immortalized thug life outside of the acronym that Tupac initially had. You know what I'm saying? It became thug life. It was not an acronym no more, you know, involving the children, right? So it's crazy how different producers can do that with somebody, you know, as great as Tupac. I mean, I still feel like a lot of artists these days, because, you know, sex sells, you know what I'm saying? Like, even in the industry now, sex sells, right? But so does that thug life, like that facade, just like, I gotta go for the biggest guy to be the king, right? Like that mentality, it's still being glorified. It's still trendy as fuck, but nobody will ever amplify it. Nobody will ever do it like Tupac. You know, I feel like he did it constructively. You know, he wasn't just like playing a role. This wasn't a movie to him. This was his life, you know. Cheers
It's funny
to
that you
Tupac,
say
man.
that, because you know, you're talking about Machiavelli, and I know that the Machiavelli that, you know, the way that Tupac wrote it is different than Machiavelli, the political philosopher. But Machiavelli, I think what's his Niccolo and Machiavelli.
Yeah,
I think that's his
Nikolai.
first name. Nikolai. Okay, yeah. He wrote The Prince, which, you know, that itself, you know, all the metaphors and imagery of, like, you know, Tupac's kind of like a prince, you know what I mean? We're just talking about Tupac Amaru from the Incan Empire, you know. But anyways, Machiavelli believed, the political philosopher, he believed that it was better to rule through fear and authority than to rule as just being like greatly loved. And so it's kind of interesting you're talking about that, and, like, you know, the portrayal that you know we see, but then there's also two sides, you know, and it's kind of, I wonder, you know, that would be like one of the questions I would want to ask Tupac if he was alive in an interview. Or I'm not sure if he ever talks about it, and not in any of the interviews I've seen, but I'd be really interested to see if he kind of was playing with that kind of link of a metaphor between himself and his you know, kind of his role within society, and then Machiavelli, you know, the political philosopher.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see.
I heard he read that book in prison too, so it's very possible that he got a lot out of it, more than he probably anticipated, you know.
Did Tupac go to prison more than once?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know the first time was like 9 months or something like that. I didn't know if there was a second time.
Yeah. No, he was in and out for a lot of things, mostly disorderly conduct.
I know he was recording some of those albums in there.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like, I mean, there's footage of him where he's in jail having interviews, and he's only like 19. Like, he wasn't even like doing movies yet, you know? Like,
yeah, I think I've seen some of the interviews. Those are some of the most, you know, I think you could take away so much from where his mind was during those times, and like kind of just that kind of being breaking away from society and hearing what he says about his time there, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy how, like, you can, well, at least me, I'm not sure, you know, like, when you listen to certain songs, I remember one particular song that Tupac dropped. You know, he was already dead. This is probably like around the time when Obama got elected. I was in jail at the time, and I've never seen so many grown Black men cry, you know, because Obama was elected. It was like, holy shit, the system just flipped the burger. You know, we got what we wanted. This is a change in America. You know, and I'm thinking about Tupac's lyrics. So, like, you know, we ain't ready to see a Black president, right? It ain't heaven sent. But this one song particularly dropped while I was in jail at the same time, like literally 2 days later, or that weekend after Obama got elected. You know, we had a chance to watch TV, and we would flip it to one channel where the radio would just play. Instead of watching the TV, we'd be listening to the radio on the TV in jail. And it was Doug's Mansion. So when you listen to that track, okay, imagine being locked up for at least 3 days. Obama gets elected, and then finally it's Friday. We get to listen to our radio, you know, me and 45 other strangers. and then they're just playing. Thank God they're playing the hip hop station. But I mean, it is jail, you know, majority of minorities, and we all come from the hood, so it was perfect timing. And that song Thug Mansion is like, we need to place a spot where we can kick it, right? And that's the intro. Bro, that hit me so hard because I'm already like, I'm writing lyrics, you know, like about the president. You know, it's like, yeah, I don't trust our government still. This is all phony. You know what I'm saying? Like, I come with that mentality naturally. Like, I don't believe in presidencies. I don't believe in the system. The system is rigged. Even to this day, it's more obvious to this day, if you ask me. But even then, I was already seeing it like that. So, you know, I remember giving all these old guys hugs. It was like, yeah, we did it. But in the back of my head, I was like, this is so fucked up. I feel like we're getting duped. You know, we're getting dumber and dumber. It seems like, you know, but for the benefit of those people, like, more power to it. It was a slight change of adjustment as far as visuals go, but the system was still systemically oppressing people to this day. Nothing has changed. You know, it's just like same milk cart, different face. But yeah, Thug's Mansion, man. When you I wanna recite some of these lyrics. Hopefully I don't tear up. Like, he had a second version with Nas on it. There's irony there because, you know, Tupac and Nas were beefing at the time when Tupac died. Beefing hardcore, like literally death threats, you know. The East Coast, West Coast rivalry was pretty strong.
But you know, I mean, but that also, like, Biggie and Tupac, you know, they had that big rivalry. But I think I was telling you this the other day. But there's interviews of Tupac talking about how they were good friends. You know, they used to give each other. You know, Tupac said he gave, you know, pointers or whatever to Biggie. I don't know how true that is, but you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see if, like, the beefing wasn't really, you know, really real and more portrayed. You know. Because I feel like a lot of that East Coast, West Coast stuff was like media hype. You know what I mean?
It really was.
Really, you know, the rappers themselves.
And this is the thing too. It was media hype, right? By moguls, like producers, like Puff Daddy. It was Puff Daddy's anger that got like a lot of people to write attack songs against Tupac. Like,
and
I don't know
the
if y'all
record labels too, no?
Yeah, well, Puff Daddy and his record labels that he runs, yeah, you're talking about 20 people following Puff Daddy's orders. So yeah, record labels, you know, that's what I'm saying, like moguls, like people that run the labels solely, but you know, the label has a different name as CEO or whatever. But you're talking about the influences that came from just one single man, Puffy, you know, because Puffy was attacked, you know, and accused of all this stuff. So of course he retaliated. And this is before Tupac died. Like, y'all remember that one song that Puff Daddy and Nas came out with? It was, you can hate me now, right? But I won't stop now. If you listen to that song, bro, like, you can tell it's an anti-Tupac song. Just listen to it. Everything he says, Nas, he brings up all eyes on me instead, right? He drops all these hints. Like, it's a diss to Tupac. And Tupac had been dead for like maybe almost 10 years before that song dropped. So, and who produced it? Puff Daddy, you know, who was the main rivalry behind the East Coast West thing, you know. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like the hip hop producers, they changed the way music hits the mainstream. Yeah. And it was a dope track too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but they also had a way to get revenue and get record sales up by keeping the beef going. And
controversy,
and that's when people started getting involved, East, West Coast and all that. And it got real ugly. Then it got real, you know.
Yeah, when people started dying, they realized, let's go back to dance music, man. You know, let's get R. Kelly in the mix, you know, and Casey and JoJo. You know, that's when they really started getting down. But yeah, speaking about Thug's Mansion, I want to read some of these lyrics because I swear when I was hearing these lyrics, I had to go to my own corner to hear these lyrics because the people playing cards in front of the TV, hogging the screen, whatever, I just couldn't like enjoy it as much. So I sat down in my little bed, my little cot. It was like a 45-man cot, right? And it was bunk bed, so I was at the top cot. So I jumped up on my bunk bed so I could at least get a bit clear of the TV from the corner, right? And Tupac was like, a place to spend my quiet nights, time to unwind, so much pressure in this life of mine. I cry at times. I once contemplated suicide and would have tried, but when I held that 9, all I could see was my mama's eyes. No one knows my struggle. They only see the trouble. And I know when it's hard to carry on when no one loves you. Picture me inside the misery of poverty. No man alive has never witnessed struggles I survived. I swear I was crying when he was saying this too, bro. You know, praying hard for better days, promised to hold on. Me and my dogs have no choice but to roll on. We found a spot where we can kick it. A place where we can drink liquor with no bickers over trick shit. You know, a spot where we can smoke in peace. And even though we G's, we still visualize as places that we can all roll in peace. And in my mind's eyes, I see this place. The players going fast. I got a spot for us all where we can ball at Thug's Mansion, right? So he's talking about like a metaphorical place where poverty doesn't exist. Jail cells don't exist, you know, crimes don't exist. And here I am sitting in jail. I was probably like 19, 17. I don't know. That shit hit me hard, man. So every time I hear that song, I think about that cell, those 45 strangers, you know. And then 3 days before that song, like Obama being elected and just seeing like, and I'm an observer of what happens around me. You know what I'm saying? So like that observation that day, that was probably the first time I witnessed corruption at its finest, experienced it firsthand, you know. And ever since then, the battle for corruption, you know, against corruption is like, boom. I was like, okay, I can't do graffiti that much anymore. I gotta try something else, you know. It's like started writing. I remember one lyric I wrote that day. It was like, this life ain't heaven sent. Even my shit changes colors like a president. That was one of the lines I wrote. It's like, okay, different colors, same shit. Like, it's like, and then look, here we are with Trump. Different colors, same shit. So.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because you could still, like, even in Old Sac, you can go down there and it still says no cruising or loitering. And I remember being a little kid and always being like, what the hell is what is loitering, you know? And loitering is literally just being. Like, you are just existing in a space. It is illegal. Like, what?
That means, like, coming by the window too many times. Like, the second time you lowered it, like, what?
Right. And if you look at the history of loitering, I mean, even if you look at what's going on right now, eye roll, you know, like I was cruising around Sacramento and you know how many Trump fucking flags I saw? So many. And what are those people doing? They're loitering. They're literally just sitting outside, chilling. I don't even know what they were doing, you know, just talking, bumping music, you know. I'm just like, you know, like all those people in their boats just, I don't know if you ever, I live over in North Sac, so you have to kind of go over the freeway, and there's like this little river, you know what I mean? And
American
you can see,
River?
it's the American River, but it's the other side, like after that Green Bridge. I don't know what the name of the Green Bridge is. But anyways, there's hella boats just chilling there. Like they don't move. They're like crossing, like the entire river is blocked. You can't go anywhere, really. You know what I mean? And they're just chilling on their boats. I'm like, they're loitering, you know, but it's like, historically you have seen how certain types of bodies and in certain types of spaces, it's okay to loiter, it's okay to cruise around, you know. And then of course if it's a, you know, a BLM rally, you know, if it's, you know, people of color, you know, getting around, then they must all be thugs or doing criminal activity, you know. And it's like, you know, I think it's really powerful you sharing those lyrics, and then like, you know, also seeing how relevant, you know, all of it still is to right now, 2020, and the things that we're seeing with this election and the way that police are treating certain types of groups and political beliefs versus others, you know. It's just wild, man. So, and it's, you know, people, I think we're, you know, it's 2020. There's really not a reason for people not to know this, you know, and for people to not speak out against it. And I think, especially in honor of Tupac, who would be speaking out on it.
Like in the intro of that song too, it's so relevant. Like if you hear that song right now, Thug's Mansion, and the intro, he's like, I'm tired of getting chased. I'm tired of getting stopped by the police. You know, he used the N-word a lot, but he'd be like, you know, Nubians need a spot where we can kick it. I'm going to replace the N-word with Nubian. It's a spot where we belong. That's just for us. Nubians ain't got to get all dressed up to be Hollywood. You know what I mean? Where do Nubians go when we die? Ain't no heaven for a thug Nubian. That's why we go to Thug Mansion. So, you know, he's talking about getting shot at, chased by cops, and ever so relevant right now. So. Welcome back. We're here to talk about Tupac.
I'm The Outcome, and I'm right here in King City at the moment. And obviously, we're here to celebrate, you know, Tupac's life and legacy. You know, rest in peace, Tupac. He passed away in '96, and you know, we still all, in a sense, feel for his loss. He contributed a lot of music to us, and when it comes down to not only his music, but the life he led as an artist, based off of his films, based off of his writing, his poetry, all that. You know, we get to remember all of that, and as part of the PTC member, I have my list of 5 items I want to speak about when it comes down to Tupac. So I ended up writing 5 items, and I ended up thinking about, you know, the different items in different ways. So I'm going to start where I feel that it would make the most relevant to begin this discussion. And for some reason, the item I want to speak on ended up being the last. But luckily, you know, being a conversation of this artist, we're able to float, fluctuate, and move around the way we decide to. My first question is the first copy of music. The first copy of music of Tupac that I ended up getting was back in 2002. I was a sophomore in high school, and I ended up getting this copy from a neighbor of mine, which was bootleg. And
Bootleg, you say?
it just had like, oh yeah, it was pretty much a CD that was burned, pretty much. It was burned, you know, homemade CD. But within this, it was a two CD collection. It was really weird because it was literally a burned CD, and I bought it for like $1. And
wow.
So when
good days, man.
When I started, oh yeah, of course, man.
Good old days.
They were having a yard sale, so. But I really do appreciate that neighbor, because as soon as I started hearing that music, they were playing the radio version of Thug Mansion, but not the one with Anthony Hamilton, not the one with Nas, but the other one that it was more like club oriented. It was like it almost had the California love feel to it.
Oh, nice.
But it was a little more beat.
I slightly remember
when I started hearing all these different, it was a club version of Thug's Mansion, and like when I ended up hearing all these different songs that I hadn't heard of because they don't play it on the radio, just because we didn't have no internet back then. You know what I'm saying? Like the internet that we had back, like the internet I ended up having access to here at home back in 2002, it was AOL, bro. And it was dial-up.
It was like,
so you ended up hearing, you know, that noise. Yes, that's what it was.
Hearing the satellites in space.
The access to all, or something, or aliens communicating within our wires. You know what I'm saying? It was really a unique experience to be living at that time, trying to get an internet connection going. All right, and
Right.
the loading was just it was like you had just you had just checked into a hotel that was reserved for people and members that belong in hell. Like it was just awful. Yeah, I mean, we just didn't have that access. So to be able to listen to all these different songs Tupac had put out, him being passed away at this point now, 6 years, bro, it made a huge difference because he spoke about things that I didn't know. It's like him growing up with a father, without a father, you know what I'm saying? Like him having a mother that underwent addiction, and having a stepsister, like all these things, like things I could not relate to. I was listening, and this guy was famous and was telling me about these problems, and he was very passionate. Like I really felt the music, so it was something that connected me in a different way, not because I lacked a dad, not because my mom was addicted, not because I had a stepsister, not because I lived in the projects. Like I lived a little more privileged in a sense, but it wasn't privileged. Like my dad still came from Mexico, was born and raised out in Mexico. He came out here on his own. He ended up, doing his own business out here when it came down to like real estate, but using like pretty much like camper trailers. I'm saying like mobile homes in a sense.
I want one of those.
He was flipping those. He was flipping those when he got here, and to this day, like he's still a permanent resident. He came here, in a sense, the legal way, just because he came here with the work permit and became a permanent resident. And yeah, like the music that I had access to was very limited. The only outlet I could get music that was coming out, that was becoming hot, or taking me back to whatever times, because I pretty much listened to everything from English to Spanish, but to listen to his music in that bootleg CD, it really made me approach him in a very genuine way. Like I really connected with this artist just because he was unapologetic with his music. He was unapologetic with the way he went about making his lyrics. Like he understood what his lyrics meant. I could hear it in his voice. I could hear it in his penmanship when it came down to writing lyrics. Like this guy had a purpose, and I felt that, and that's what made me connect with him. But that was my first real exposure to his full material, not just as an artist. You know what I'm saying? I knew Tupac had passed away in '96. I was in the 5th grade back then. I believe 10 years old.
Oh wow, it's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Or in the 4th grade. It was like 4th, 5th grade.
Yeah, we were all young bucks.
Yeah. But yeah, that to me is my first point, my first exposure. You know what I'm saying? Like to the real man behind all the music. You know what I'm saying? Where I get to like really listen to it. It was back when I was 15, 16 years old.
Oh, bro.
You know
so your first.
That's my first point. Well,
your first CD of Tupac was a bootleg one, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Man, do you remember that though? Like,
I couldn't even buy the album. I didn't have that kind of money.
I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was shortly after Tupac died. There was all these like Machiavelli bootleg albums coming out, like Machiavelli 1, Machiavelli 2, Machiavelli 3, and it was a whole bunch of his unreleased material, whole bunch of unreleased material that came out later on albums that we know of now, and they sound so much better. But I remember hearing a lot of these songs on these bootlegs, like Machiavelli bootlegs, you know. So I don't know if you remember that, but there was compilation of 20 solid of it's some underground stuff, at least in Texas at the time. But yeah, you know, back to your items, you know, discussing Tupac.
Okay. Yes, sir. All right. For the second item. His mental work ethic. Now, when it came down to Tupac and his mental work ethic, I feel this man was just relentless. Okay, because from my understanding, he went to an art school growing up. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it was out in New York or if it was already back in the Bay where he was residing. But he went to art school and yeah, I feel that the experience, I feel the experience there that he had at the art school really did shape, form, and had a lot to do with how he was able to just release music, because that's initially, I feel like, what he wanted to do. Aside from acting and writing poetry and whatnot, I feel like he really didn't want to create hip hop, but he was always doing something. Like we kind of like, as an artist, we envision him as always being this artist that lives within a party. You know what I'm saying? That's the agenda of artists, always being within a party. You know what I'm saying? But this guy just was a workaholic. Like, he created so much material at such a young age, and a lot of his music is still not even released. A lot of his music is still not released. This guy has so much material. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right.
That style is very rare. At one point, like, he was pushing out an album every year, and then it got to the point where he had recorded and done so much that by the time he ended up passing away, he had album after album after album that just kept on being released posthumously after his death, that it was like a lot of artists had to fucking really put in work to reach that level. And few artists have been able to do that while being current within like touring season, when it comes to artists touring and performing at, you know, cities and whatnot. Like the few that I know, Too Short, E40, maybe Jay-Z, but E40 has over 30 albums. Too Short has over 30 albums, but they've been in the game longer than Tupac.
Yeah.
And Tupac, it's unfathomable, all the work that he did through his music. But aside from his music, he was also putting in work through activism. He was putting in so much work with the community. He was trying to, you know, really trying to change people's lives. You know what I'm saying? I feel that he ended up influencing the game so much that they ended up creating a truce at one point where they wouldn't even shoot each other. You know what I'm saying? And this was between Bloods and Crips from all different neighborhoods, and he was able to do that based off of thug life, just because what was more relevant, aside from, you know, the beefs that different gangs had within the same area, but just being part of their own set. The bigger issue was police brutality. It was, you know, police corruption. You know what I'm saying? So when they laid down the truth, is because they already understood the bigger problem. It wasn't amongst them. It was systemic. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Tupac had a say in that. Tupac, when he separated from Death Row and created his persona as Machiavelli, Machiavelli, where he pretty much, brought the Outlaws, underneath his umbrella, and fucking created his own label. It wasn't it Machiavelli Records as well, or what was the name of his record label?
I think it was actually
Like Illuminati Records or some shit.
Illuminati. Yeah.
Machiavelli.
Right before he died, that's what he
Illuminati?
started, and it didn't go anywhere. Well, I don't know if it went anywhere. Actually, that's a good question. I gotta look into that.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, was trying to promote growth amongst other artists. He was trying to, obviously induct, and on top of inducting, trying to promote other artists within the Outlaws beneath the Illuminati Records. You know what I'm saying? His record label. And so, with that being said, it was like from all these different ventures that he's having, it's just unfathomable, like how much he moved to create change, not only for others but through himself as well. Like he was changing himself fucking deeply. I feel like even though he had beef with Biggie at the time, this guy was doing some serious sidestepping and was trying to do things his own way, where he was able to have more control over the movement of not only his music, but who had control and say for it, just because he understood that he was selling a lot. He was highly marketable. He understood that, but at the same time, he knew that his roots were true. So that just, his net worth would have fucking just shot up the roof. You know what I'm saying? So this guy understood the market. He understood the music industry. He understood the streets. He understood so many different levels. This guy is unparalleled. This guy is literally, in the sense of the word, not only a G, but he is the man. You know what I'm saying? This guy tried to take to a place that we could have been, we should be in, we could be in, we would be in, but we're still in the same spot. You know what I'm saying? So that was my second piece. His mental work ethic. Now, when it came down to his mental work ethic, from his music and activism, a lot of attention, right? It gave him a lot of attention. It had a lot of exposure, especially his life and trajectory within the film industry. You know what I'm saying? Hollywood and all of that, doing Poetic Justice, doing Juice, doing other films. You know what I'm saying? So this all did from him, doing, his film work. I mean, he got his start not as an MC. He didn't get his start as a rapper. He started in Digital Underground back in the late 80s, early 90s, you know what I'm saying? And he didn't get his start as a MC, as a rapper. He started from the bottom, homie. This goes back to my second point, which is his mental work ethic. He's able to set aside his own pride, his own vision, to be able to step into an industry as something smaller, so he could at least get his foot in.
Right.
And this goes to his mental work ethic. This shows determination. This shows that this fool is thinking a little different, just because he's like, fuck it, I'll be a dishwasher if it came down to it.
Yeah,
like I'll be a janitor just to get my foot in.
And I heard that he was the backup dancer too for Digital Underground before he was the MC. So he was dancing, breakdance stuff.
That was his initial start at Digital Underground, honey.
Yeah.
He was a backup dancer. Ow. This guy was not only a poet, an activist, a rapper. He was pretty much a producer. He was a guy. He was a businessman. He had been in prison. He had done time. He came out. He's an author. But you're going to tell me now that this fool knows how to dance? Homie. Like, If we were to be having this conversation with Fat Joe, this was like, real gangsters don't dance. We just pull up the pants and throw the rock wave. I lean back. You see me entiendes? Like,
Yeah.
Tupac knew how to dance. Full Tupac knew how to dance.
Yo. Ooh,
Everybody.
damn, if you think about that
Back
line,
in the-
though, that line was a diss to a lot of artists, because even Dr. Dre was a dancer before he was a DJ. So, you know what I'm saying? That line goes so hard for Fat Joe.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, his initial roots lie in very humble means that would start him off small, but he would be able to make his way under one way or another. His determination, his tenacity, that devotion of wanting to make it to the top. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
at the same time, as I said prior to describing his humble beginnings, this guy was, he was starring in films. This guy was in prison. He was doing time, and he was still speaking in prison through and speaking on very socially conscious, aware topics. This guy was a very educated man. Why? Because his mother obviously was part of the Black Panthers alongside his dad. You know what I'm saying? They were members of the Black Panthers. This kid was an educated man.
Mm-hmm.
Turned to be an educated man.
Yeah.
So, with all the attention surrounding all these different themes, I feel that each time that he was succeeding and getting someplace, he was always being put into prison. You know what I'm saying? When he was reaching a certain level, he would get thrown in prison. But it wasn't because he was acting out of pocket, because of the greed, or because of, what was like going on in his head. I feel his ego never blew up at all. All right. I feel like it would get inflamed at times, but it was during the times of high tension when it came down to his fame. What his fame was doing, you know what I'm saying? So I feel that the cost of fame on his own character always came down to the pressures of the music industry, of the film industry, of the media, of his prior friendships that he grew up with, that he was growing up with, like a lot of them that felt solid would come to an easy disconnect. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then especially like being inside prison, the time that he was in prison, where he had been interviewed and all that, like
Even
it
in
seems like he
Juvenile.
was more socially conscious. Yeah, he was more of a social conscious human being. You know what I'm saying? So this guy was educated, even though fame, I feel, would get to him at times. And I believe that it would happen to any of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that many of us who are in if you do end up making it, be wary. You know what I'm saying? Like, keep your eye, keep an eye open. Keep, while you rest with your, but keep one eye open, because a lot of people, they won't walk with you the entire way. They'll act as if they know the way, and it's easy to sound as such, but not everybody will walk with you the path that is expected at it.
Don't get Suge Knight, right?
That I feel.
Don't get Suge Knighted.
There you go. I mean, there you go. Now, that was my third point. All right. My fourth point, and I feel like I'm creating a little more gravity into the topic that I'm reaching here, just because that was his situation.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a few videos alongside documentaries that speaks on it, and while working under Digital Underground and that music label that they were signed and contracted to, even going on with Death Row, Tupac was not getting the actual money he deserved. You know what I'm saying? He would show a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? but this guy was not getting paid what he was worth. I feel the record labels, the contracts had a lot of text that I feel many artists, when they first start, won't understand. That's why it's it's more than recommended. It's like it's an obligation to have a lawyer that you're going to be paying to be there when signing a contract of that gravity. Especially if you've shown promise to your craft, all that good stuff. By the time Tupac had passed away, from what from the statements of his mother, he didn't have more than $7,000 under his bank account. And this artist was a multi-platinum record selling artist.
Right.
Like, he wasn't no like chump off the block, like 7 G's. And he had cars and boats and whatnot, but it's like those were not his. You know what I mean? Like, he displayed that lifestyle, but it wasn't.
It was props,
he spent most
right?
of his time at the studio.
It was pretty much props.
Yeah. It was more, yeah, of course. But he wasn't getting paid what he was worth. He wasn't looked after the way he was worth. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel his death could have easily been avoided, but
yeah,
the noise he was making was the right noise to us, but definitely not the noise that people in power want to be hearing. To kill that noise, they'll go ahead and do so.
Yeah.
And they'll say it's a conspiracy, this and that, and it's easy for people in power to be able to say that. Because when it comes down to poor people, it seems like even the police would be like, oh, you know what? Well, this person did it, and that's that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But when it comes to the wealthy, it seems like, oh, well, it could be conspiracy. Nobody was here. Nobody knows. But in small towns and big towns, everybody knows who did it.
Yep, unfortunately. There's that G code. Nobody wants to snitch, right? But
Right. Unless you're Tekashi 6ix9ine, then you won't have a problem.
And that's the thing, like you said, the death of Tupac could have been prevented had his management took his music as serious as Tupac was taking his music serious. Like Tekashi 9's management. Obviously, they're keeping him alive. They got him some under witness protection program, right? And after all the controversy that Tupac went through, they couldn't protect this guy. So, some industry. But yeah, not to cut you off, man.
No, not at all. I'm actually, to be honest, that was pretty much the ending of my 4th point. I'm down to my 5th. And
okay.
I want to end it on lighter terms, just because we've been speaking about Tupac in some very personal ways that if Tupac were here, he'd probably be shutting me the fuck up with a few slaps and shit, and I'd be all bloodied up and fucking crying in the corner, fucking.
Oh no!
Mom, even though I'm at my parents' house, you know what I mean? Like, so I want to change it to something a little lighter, and
okay.
I want to speak on my top 5 songs of Tupac.
All right.
Top 5 songs. They're not in no general order. I just went off of what I went off of hearing the songs and then where it would take me to, and how vivid I'm able to capture what I'm feeling and what place my feelings take me to, as to time that I've already lived while listening to the song. So they don't have a specific order. I just felt, these are my top 5 songs as to the strength that the song has, as to what it is and where it takes me to. The first one is Changes. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Changes, like as I've said before, that That song is not only written, back in the mid '90s. This song is still relevant today, 25 years later.
Yes, it
This is
is.
fucking ridiculous.
Fucking,
It's prophetic.
yeah. He was
Like
way ahead of his time.
this takes me back to my birth. You know what I'm saying? My birth, like from birth up until now, like that song has not changed as to anything. Like this song still encapsulates what was going on prior to it being written. This song is futuristic. Okay,
Yep.
changes in my mind and my heart. It kind of does feel as number one, but that's just an opinion. Other people can make different arguments, and you know what? It'd be beautiful to be able to discuss these things, because obviously this guy was a very intelligent, educated, very artistic human being. We need more discussions, less gunfire. Number two that I have written down is Thug's Mansion. Oh, Thug's Mansion. It always takes me back to. It always takes me back to a lot of my family members that have passed away. A lot of friends that have passed away. I feel that this song kind of like it's not to me. It's not a depressing song. I feel like it's more of an uplifting one. It's a hopeful song,
A hopeful.
just
That's a
because.
good, yeah.
Yeah,
Good feeling.
it's a hopeful song.
Mhm.
It's just because it's like Tupac's asking for heaven for only thugs. You know what I'm saying? Because he feels like, yo, I don't think heaven would accept thugs. So can there just be at least a heaven for thugs? The ones who drink, smoke, and shit, talk shit, play dominoes, and fucking. There's Rottweilers barking in the back, but the souls of dead, G'd out, fucking Rottweilers and Pitbull just fucking barking and shit.
He's like, we need a spot where we can kick it, a spot where we can get along, right? It's like a place called Thug Mansion, where there's no poverty.
Yeah, that's just for us.
Just for us. You don't gotta be a G, or something. You gotta be a G to get in.
A place to spend my quiet nights. Time to unwind so much pressure in this life of mine. A quiet time. I was contemplating suicide, and when I tried, but when I held that 9, all I could see was my mama's eyes. No one knows my struggle. They only see the trouble. I know when it's hard to care when no one loves you. Picture me inside the misery of poverty. No man alive has ever witnessed the struggles I survived, praying hard for better days to hold on. Me and my dogs ain't choice but to roll on. Find a spot to kick it where we could drink liquor and no one beat or trick shit. A spot where we could smoke in peace. And even though we still visualize places where we can roll in peace. And in my mind's eyes, oh, dude, this guy was just. This was definitely a good man.
Yeah.
Moving on to my third song out of my top 5.
Right.
I could read the title, but it's a little graphic, so I'd rather just do it the way the chorus comes out. I'd rather be your Nigga, so we get drunk and smoke weed all day. Ain't no matter if you're lonely, baby. You need a thug in your life. These buses ain't love in your right.
That's such a great song.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That song that always reminded me of like ladies I have seen. So it's like that song is kind of like a feel good song, but it's like a very like intimate, very real way of saying it type of intimate song.
Yep.
You're just like, yeah, fool, I'd be that. I'd rather be that for you, fool.
Yeah, fool.
Why'd you leave me? Ah, no, just kidding. All right, so number 4. Why'd you leave me? Okay, moving on. Number 4. Number 4, bro. Let's keep it moving, all right? Well, I ain't trying to use up any more of everybody's time. You know what I'm saying? Let's do number 4. All right, number 4. I ain't gonna lie, just because of my time out in Santa Barbara, you know what I'm saying? Like, along with the last song, you know, that I referenced, I really do feel that Get Around by, you know, in Tupac's album Tupacalypse. That song right there, dude, it was just like, yep.
That's such a classic, man.
Dude, that song right there. Of course. Fingertips on the hips as I zip. Gotta get a tight grip. Don't slip. Loose lips ain't shit. Sit the trip. I love the way she licks her lips. See me jocking. Put a little twist in the hips. Cause I'm watching conversations in the phone till the break of dawn. Now we on the lawn while the lights on. Turn them off. Time to set it off. Get your weapons off. Something's on your mind. Let it off. You don't know me. You just met me. You won't let me. Well, if I couldn't have it till he grabbed it, why you sweating me? There's a lot of real G's doing time. Cause the groupie fit the truth and told a lie. You picked the wrong guy, baby. If you're Tupac, you need to hit the door and search for a new guy. Cause I only got one night in time break. Gotta be calm without holding you down. I get around. That song right there, just fluid flow, bro. And just letting her know. Don't play with me no more. All right. And so, yeah, that song I really do. That I do have some really good memories from it. The last one, though, takes me back to Thug's Mansion, bro. Takes me back to Thug's Mansion, and I remember being in Santa Barbara. All right, the weekend after the shooting at UCSB happened. Like seven people got shot and killed and whatnot. I was actually in Dublin the night where the shooting happened. Just shooting pool. Down was there. Anna was working, bro. Like, we heard the shootings, and I really felt like it was part of the song. So I just kept on shooting pool. You know what I mean? It was fucking weird, bro. But yeah, like people started running in, and like I remember the bartender like running like out from his area and like running to the door and locking the door. I'm like, hey, yo, what's going on? He's like, yo, there's somebody shooting outside. I'm like, oh, shit. You know, I was like, it was like a surreal moment. I was like, you know what? I don't believe it, you know? But yeah, that's when that massacre happened right there at UCSB. And I remember that following Tuesday. That happened a Friday night. The following Tuesday, there was a memorial right there at the Harder Stadium, at the soccer stadium for UCSB. And all the students pretty much went there from like 11 to 3 or 11 to 4 or something. And, you know, they had their speakers and whatnot. Well, I ended up working that day, but because of that memorial, work was cut short because they were going to close down the youth center early that day. So by the time I'm getting off of work, I go straight to Dublin's. And when I'm walking into Dublin's, it's like 3:15, 3:20. And there's people there. So I feel that because of like what had happened, I feel like some of those students had left and whatnot and went to Dublin because they didn't want to be in that environment. Bro, I don't know who the bartender was that day, but they were playing some really like weird music to be playing for that kind of environment because everybody just seemed awkward, out and down, depressed, you know, like it seemed everybody seemed like they were out of balance and they were just all chilling at the bar, just like not knowing what to say. Bro, I walked up to that jukebox, played this song right here, and the moment this song played, the environment of the bar snapped out of it, and they were like, yes, okay, got it, like, all right, I'm good. Like everybody at the bar, I'm telling you, like everybody was sitting down, like not trying to socialize, and they were with friends, bro. You could tell they're like facing each other, looking at each other. They're just like they're motionless. They're not socializing, nothing. I go to the jukebox, fucking type in Tupac, type in So Many Tears. Played that song, boom. That bar snapped out of it. Everybody was back in rhythm, dude. So Many Tears.
Yeah, bro.
That was the one song that to this day, even if it does take me back to my parents, it takes me back to different places, but I'm that what Tupac ended up writing, recording, documenting, and placing on that track resonates with me 100%. This guy just knew how to express himself, not only personally, but where it resonates with an entire group of people that reside on this planet. He really did his job very well.
Oh,
That tip in my
absolutely.
hat to that guy. I don't have it on me, but respect for that man, dude.
Much respects, man. Seriously, I feel like Tupac was a family member for most households, you know, especially for us people of color, you know, for us marginalized communities, for us unwarranted communities, the hood, if you want to be specific, right?
Yes, sir.
The barrios,
Project.
the razas. You're talking about he reached millions because to this day, millions are going through the struggle that Tupac painted through his music, you know. And I remember a lot of people chewing him out because, you know, he was calling women bitches, right, in certain songs. But that was all the facade that comes with the industry. You know, that was all the music that the record labels wanted him to produce. They were like, yeah, it's cool to be serious, Tupac, but we really love that thug shit, the thug passion, you know, bring the woman, bring the weed, bring the bitches, M.O.B., right? We love the controversy. We love that it sells, right? So it's just like the real Tupac underneath all that surface level stuff, he left his legacy. And here we are talking about it, 2020, you know, and we're going to continue to talk about it because, man, it's one of the big reasons why I do what I do lyrically, you know. It's like I don't just write lyrics. I try to put a little bit more than myself into those lyrics because Tupac obviously did that, you know. So, yeah. I really enjoyed that list though, man. And changes, bro. Something about changes. It's like out of all the Tupac songs that the media plays to this day, there were some that I grew tired of, you know, personally. Like California Love, it's great. It's a great song, especially when it first came out. But that's just one song when it comes on, it's like, I don't know if I can hear it. I've heard it too many times, right? There's quite a few that I'm a big Tupac fan. So it's just like, we play these stuff without the radio having to play it for us. So when I hear it there, it's just like, play another Tupac song. He has so many, right? But Changes, bro, that's the song that when I hear it on the radio, it never gets old. It's that hopeful song. Like you said about Thug's Mansion, it's a very hopeful song. So Tupac has many hopeful songs, man. And that's
what I love about him the most, bro.
Mm.
He,
All right.
He not only brings hope, he brings fucking. Not only does he bring hope, he brings reality. He brings advice. He brings experience, observation. This guy is just this is a real human being, the type of human being that when you hear him, it makes you want to meet him.
Mm-hmm.
Don't matter who you are. It's just like, damn. Even if you're a racist and you hate black people, this is the type of being that they're intrigued by this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the type of guy who would change lives, change mentalities, make people have a change of heart, bro. You know what I'm saying? This is that guy right there.
Yeah.
Tupac Amaru Shakur.
Dopalicious. The dopest. One of the realest.
AKA the Don Illuminati. AKA Tupac. AKA Machiavelli.